I am supposed to be outside mowing the yard. It's a great day for it here in Texas. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go make a video about changing couplers on a Kato locomotive. That sounds like a lot more fun to me. Hello model railroaders, Brian Page here. So this is another video in my continuing efforts to swap out my fleet of N-scale cars and locomotives to microtrains couplers. And I've already done the cars. I did a video on that. I also had another video on an old caboose with molded on Rapido couplers. Went through that. Next up is a Kato locomotive. This is just the shell. This is an ES44AC locomotive, I believe. And the recommended couplers are these underslung short shank body mount couplers. And this one is 2004-1 is the part number on this one. Now, thing is, I have already, I don't know if you can see this. Yeah, there we go. I've already done one end. Put the microtrains coupler on one end. And I did I stuffed the guts back in the locomotive and I did a little check, and it seems that the coupler on the microtrains coupler may be a little bit high. So I have seen where other people recommended that, like I said, this one is the 2004-1. Other people have recommended that maybe a 2003-1 would be a better height. I'm going to show you how I put these on. It turned out to be very easy. I was all set for a massive undertaking here, and in the case of this locomotive, it turned out to be extremely easy. I didn't even have to use screws, and I'll show you why that is. I'm going to put them on and see how the coupler height worked out, and I'll go on from there. Alright, so I hope you can see this okay. I always have a challenge with getting the camera close enough to see small fiddly work. As I mentioned before, I've already done the coupler on this end. That is a microtrains and it's in place. So now, working on the other end, I'm going to take my little X-Acto knife, and I don't know if you can see it okay, but there is a little clip that runs across the coupler here. And on the inside of that, there is a copper or brass spring, which we're not going to use after the swap. But I'm going to take the X-Acto knife here and stick it in the edge of that clip and just pry inwards and up. And that's it. That's the whole coupler right there. Now, I don't, like I said, I don't need this copper. Whoop, there we go. N scale again. I don't need this copper spring, so I'm just going to knock that out. All right, now it turns out, I was all prepared to drill, tap, and do all kinds of messing around, but it turns out, like I said, on this engine, I'm going to take one of these 2004-1 couplers. Turns out that you can just slide this into the hole. If I can get it started, and push it in to where the hole in that coupler draft box is just coming inside there. Then we can take our little clip. I hope you can see this. The little corners go towards the end of the locomotive, and that center pin in that clip will go through the hole in the coupler draft box. So I don't even have to do any messing around with drilling, tapping, or anything else. All I got to do is get this center pin into the hole and hopefully push that clip right back in. And that's it, folks. That's the whole deal. It's in there. There's no pressure on the draft box, so the coupler moves very easily on both ends. On this particular locomotive, that's the whole challenge. Now, I don't know if all Kato locomotives work the same way, but this one, I'm pleased to say, was extremely easy. So all I have to do now is stuff the guts back in, and I'll check it for height. Alright, so let's get the guts back in this thing, and hopefully I don't break anything. Nothing falls apart. Alright, there we go. Now I'm going to take it over to the track and see... Yep, okay. And see how the coupler height is. Alright, so I have put the locomotive back on the track, and I don't know if you can see that, but it is a little bit too high. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to order up some microtrains couplers part, can you see that? Yeah, it is a little bit too high. I'm going to order up some microtrains couplers number 2003-1 and see if the height is better. Hold the phone, everyone. I think I have found another solution without getting more parts. So, yeah, everything I said before about this being really easy is getting a little bit more complicated. But I think it'll work. So, on the front of this locomotive, let's see if I can get this plow off the front. I think it just pulls off. I need my glasses here. Yeah, the plow just snaps on the front. I don't know if it's really possible for you to see it, but in the hole for the coupler in the front here, there is, down at the bottom of this hole, there is little, I don't know what to call them, indentations or something like that down at the bottom of the hole. I'm going to pop the clip and everything out from the front of this again. Get the blade of the knife in there and pry inward again and get this clip back out. Okay, there we go. All right, if I take this coupler back out of the hole once again, now maybe we can see it. There are little, let me get some focus here. If you can see down at the bottom of that hole, there are little indentations coming into the hole. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this knife and I'm going to cut those out, and then that will allow the draft box of the coupler to drop down lower in the hole, and I will put a shim under it where it mounts. Unfortunately, what this means is I will no longer be able to use the clip. I'm going to have to put a screw in it. But hey, even so, it's still a pretty simple process. So let's get going with that. All right, so now I have taken the X-Acto knife and I have carved out the little indentations that were in the opening, and now you can see, I think, if I could get it to focus, that the hole is now square. It doesn't have the little nubs going into the opening. That should allow the draft box to drop down a little bit with a shim. All right, hold on a sec. Okay, I've shoved the coupler back in, and what I did was push down on the outside of it here just to angle it up in the back a little bit. And I have, let's see if I can pick this up, I have this little shim that came with some of the couplers out of another kit, and it's roughly the same size and shape of the draft box that I'm installing here. So I'm going to take that thing and I'm going to try to slide that underneath this draft box. Alright, so here we go. With the tweezers, I'm going to attempt to shove this into the space underneath that draft box and push it in. And I'm having only moderate success, but there it goes. Alright, so now that little shim has been put into the space under that draft box, and it should be pushing the coupler lower. All I have to do now, oh, there it is. I got to find that screw. Okay, let's take that and put it in the hole of the draft box. Take our jeweler's screwdriver here. I'm going to set this down so that I have some pressure. And I know this is going to be hard to see on the video, but I'm just going to take and put that screw right down in there. Hopefully it will go through the hole in that shim also, and just force this screw right into the old hole where the pin from the original clip stuck in. And it seems to be working just fine. Now I'm not going to go too tight with this screw, because if you do, it'll bind up the coupler and it won't spring back and forth. All we need is to just hold it straight and yeah, there we go. So I guess now I will not be using the clip after all. It turned out to be a little more complicated, but hey, it'll be worth it if the coupler height is correct with the rest of my cars. Next up, I'm going to stuff the guts back into the locomotive and see how we're doing for height. Alright, I'm going to go out on a dead shaky limb here and say that this process would have been a little easier with the right parts, maybe. If 2003-1 is the right part. But as you can see, I finagled this some more off camera. I ended up putting a couple of shims underneath the draft box of the coupler. And if you can see it, yeah, it's the right height. Got it down there where it belongs. Yeah, looks pretty good. And I've tested both ends, so we seem to be okay. Alright, so it turned out not to be quite as easy as I said it was in the middle of this video. But aside from putting a couple of screws in, putting some shims in, it really wasn't that bad. It's nothing to be afraid of. This is my first attempt at doing this, and I was pretty comfortable with it. So in the wake of all that, it looks to me like I've run out of train things to talk about, so I might be back to mowing the yard. Bummer. Alright all, thanks for watching. Give me some thumbs up and some comments, and I will see you at the next stop.